White South African TV presenter tells Zimbabwe to go home. In this bizarre and heated interaction, Leanne, a white South African TV presenter, asked South African-based Zimbabwean political activist Rutendo Matinyarare why he does not want to go back home. Watch.
What do you say? I mean, are you living in South Africa, Rutendo? Let's ask you that question. Do you live here?
Yes, I do live in South Africa, and I think it's very important for Basilton to be able to take his context and not use that self-reference to think that that's my situation. I was offered an opportunity to come to South Africa in 1999 by a South African company that offered me a work permit while I was in Zimbabwe. I was working as a manager in a company, and I came to South Africa because of the opportunity it offered me in the marketing space. So I did not leave Zimbabwe because of the fact that Zimbabwe was not good.
Number two, a lot of millions that are here.
Number two, there are a lot of people that are in South Africa that have run away from land to come waiters in South Africa. They've run away from mining gold, platinum, diamonds, and resources to come to South Africa because they would rather prefer to be given a job by somebody else, to use their CV rather than to take over the land, take the resources, and use those resources to become rich the way that it has made the Rhodesians rich.
Why don't they? I mean, if that's what you're saying, they're running away from those wonderful opportunities. Why don't they take up the opportunity? In fact, why don't you take up the opportunity? Why would you come and make your fortune here in South Africa when, as you've described it, you could be making a fortune in Zimbabwe? Why are you here?
Because I'm part of the problem in Zimbabwe. My attitude of thinking that I had to come and take up the opportunity that was offered to me here,
so why don't you go
instead
home?
of mining
May
land.
I ask you that? Why are you not
I am going home. But right now, I've also got family in South Africa. I've got South African children, and those South African children don't just allow me to just stand up and leave, but I do have projects that I'm taking part in Zimbabwe because I've learned that those resources are the most important thing.
If you have such faith in your country, in Zimbabwe, I would say and I would think you would get up and you would take your family and you would go and fix up the future of Zimbabwe. If you're saying there's land, if you're saying there's minerals, if you're saying there is so much wealth and opportunities for you there, you're living a contradiction.
No, I'm not living a contradiction.
You certainly are. By sitting here, you're living a contradiction. Because people are suffering in Zimbabwe.
So why are people not
languishing?
Why are people not going to the Netherlands? Why are Germans not going back to Germany? Is it because their countries are bad? Is it because they're running away from problems in the UK or in the States? Why aren't Europeans going? What are you doing here?
I live here. This is my home. I'm not running away from it.
Why are you living here instead of Europe? Why did your great-grandparents come here instead of Europe?
We're not talking about grandparents. We're talking about me.
No,
we're talking about you.
You've made it sound like a Zimbabwe needs to go back to Zimbabwe to show that Zimbabwe is working. So why are Europeans not going back to Europe? Why are Asians not going back to Asia? Why are they staying in South Africa?
The context of the conversation is that you're saying that Zimbabwe is a beautiful country with great opportunities and people have run away from there to become waiters. The context is you are living here in South Africa when you could be going back and making that country work. That's the context.
You also forgot that I was asked to come here. Somebody thought my skills were important here.
I've been asked to go to other countries, but I believe in this country.
But why don't you believe in Europe?
No, I believe in South Africa.
Why don't you believe in Europe?
I believe in my country.
Why don't you believe in Europe?
This is not about me and you. This is about Zimbabwe.
But the question has to apply to you as well, though.
Is he saying the 5 million, 6 million Zimbabweans here were also asked to come here, like he was asked to come here? No, they were not asked. They jumped the borders out of desperation.
The exchange occurred during a live TV program SABC News Online, reflecting on the legacy of Zimbabwe's first post-independent leader, Robert Mugabe. Matinyarare highlighted that, despite the challenges Western sanctions have caused, Zimbabwe was on the rise owing to its immense natural resources. Manas responded to this by saying that if the country had such great resources, Matinyarare should leave South Africa and return to Zimbabwe, a line that right-wing xenophobes commonly use. However, the Zimbabwe activist was equal to the task and quickly reminded the anchor that our ancestors had migrated from Europe to South Africa. Further, I take a Pan-Africanist perspective, which acknowledged that European colonizers created the borders of African states and that Matinyarare, as an African, has the right to live in any part of the continent. Matinyarare, leader of the Zimbabwe anti-sanctions movement, recently posted this video on his X, formerly Twitter account, saying 5 years after this very interview, the US lifted 2-decade-long sanctions. Zimbabwean Vice President Constantino Chiwenga had said last year that US and EU sanctions have cost the landlocked Southern African country more than $150 billion. However, after removing the 2003 sanctions, the US imposed new restrictions on Zimbabwe officials and entities in March.